One of the clients I met the other day had spent $80,000 in self-help, in like physical stuff and doctor stuff, trying to work on herself, trying to fix the problems that were there, to no avail. I had a client that I worked with a couple months ago that part of her opening like talk and saying, hey, this is where I've been, this is what I've done, is the previous year she had spent over $10,000 on therapy and still was stuck. We see countless people that come to Raw Motivations after being in a therapy or a counseling setting, and they get to a place where they're either still stuck or they get to a place where they kind of like max out. They kind of like hit their ceiling, they kind of plateau in their growth. And this is not to bash therapists out there, not to bash counselors out there, because there's a lot of them that are doing a really good work. I still meet with a therapist, counselor. I have two that I meet with every other week. Alternate, so I meet with one weekly. It's great and it's huge, but the difference is like they change modalities, they grow, they develop. So like I don't get stuck. If I get stuck, then we work on something, we work through it. But there's too many therapists out there that leave you stuck in the relationship, giving you healthy mantras, giving you like good practices, tips and tricks to be able to leave, but it doesn't actually change the thought process and you're still staying stuck. You'd be surprised how many therapists and counselors I talk to on a week-to-week basis. Of people that show up to my door and they're like, hey, I feel really stupid for being here because I'm a therapist and I help coach people. I help walk people through this. I help liberate people through this, and I'm stuck in one. I'm like, yeah, I get it. I see a lot of times people that do that because you go through school and you get taught narcissistic personality disorder, and it's a day or maybe a week going over just the attributes, the things that are going on there, something that's skimmed over so much, and you think you can identify it? I'm sorry, but a lot of therapists out there, it's quite laughable that they think they can identify narcissistic personality disorder. Some of you wonder, like, hey, why won't my narcissist go to get diagnosed? He doesn't want to get diagnosed. There's guilt and shame. A lot of therapists don't want to diagnose a narcissist because there's no money in it, because unless they commit to coming back for the rest of their life, they're like, I can't prescribe them a pill. I can't work through this, and it's the incurable disease, quote unquote. So, like, might as well not do it. Then you have ones that think that they're helping, they're just getting manipulated, they're just getting lied to, and then you as the abused are then looked at as the abuser. There's so many different things. And so I need you to understand, not all, but you might be in a place where you're with a therapist or a counselor that has been inadequate in breaking the cycle of abuse in your life. I said earlier, I'll say it again, this is not me bashing therapists. I see those weekly. But if you're at a point in your life where you're plateauing in your growth and you're not breaking through how to get free, we need to wake up and understand that some therapists and counselors are not doing the job. Does that mean they're bad people? No, they're great people. It's just they might not have the expertise in this particular area. I was talking to someone the other day and they were like, you don't just have us do like mantras and have community to have people like talk shit about their relationships. I was like, no, like that would be awful. And like I would want to shoot myself because that would be ridiculous because it's not helping people grow and develop. One person's like, I don't just want to do just like happy mantras because that's what my therapist has been having me do and it hasn't been helping. Like I get it, like I'm worthy, but I don't feel any worthy. And I'm like, yeah, because what that therapist is doing is they're trying to take a square peg and pound it into a round hole. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. That might not be the actual story that you're telling yourself. It might be a piece of it, but there's something deeper that if we don't actually deal with that, it's not going to help. You're putting a Band-Aid on the actual problem, not dealing with the problem that's still there. There's so many different modalities and ways that therapists will go after and target different things, but oftentimes it leaves you dependent on the therapist, leaves you dependent on coming back to them every single week to say, here's my problem, now what do I do? And oftentimes it doesn't give you the tools to actively break yourself free. This is the difference. This is what I started to notice. Because I'd be talking to different people working in our programs. I'd be talking to different people as they were breaking free from narcissistic abuse. And I started to realize that the difference was enabling that person to have the power and the capacity to break free with the systems and the tools. Not being dependent on me, not being dependent on another person, not being dependent on anyone, but them learning to actually grow in their own self-confidence and development. Not all therapists are doing this in a bad way, but some of them get to a place where you're so dependent on them that you're like, yeah, I've been in therapy for like 8 years. And I'm like, and you're still stuck? then like something needs to change, because that's obviously not working. Now, again, on the other side, is there a quick hack? No. Is there a quick fix? No. But if you put in the work consistently into you, will it change a lot faster than 8 years? Yeah, typically. Like, we run programs that are 90 and 120 days. Typically, after that, when someone goes all in, like, let's say if they're out of the relationship, breaking rumination, yeah, that's going to happen. If they're in the relationship, then a lot of times we're working through logistics. So sometimes logistics take longer, but it still happens if they show up and they put in the work consistently. Because the difference is they're not investing in a therapist, they're not investing in someone else, they're investing in themselves. Because they're learning how to show up for themselves every single day. They're learning how to rewire their mindset every single day using their own tools, their own modalities. So that they're not relying on someone else to say, oh, you need to think this thought. They're like, hey, just FYI, Ben, like, I was thinking this thought the other day and I actually started processing it and I rewired my mindset to actually get back to reality of like, that wasn't true. I was just believing a lie. And it's amazing because all of a sudden people start to get it and they're like, wow, I see it now. The hard part is a lot of times you will stay stuck in a toxic relationship because the therapist that you're with is not able to actually break you free. Now here's the hard part, because you're probably like, wait a second, he's like ramping us up so he can sell us that he can break us free. Guess what? I can't. That's the beauty of it. I can give you the tools. I can create the container. I can open the space for training and development, but I can't break you free. Neither can your therapist. The only person that can break you free is you. The problem is where you are right now, you don't have the tools, you don't have the system, you don't have the support, and you don't have people in your life that actually get it. You got family that says just leave. You got family that wants you to leave. You got family that's pissed off at him and they're pissed off at you. And you've gotten to the place at times where you're even hiding that toxic relationship because you're afraid what'll happen when your friends and family find out that you went back again. But you're in therapy, thinking and hoping that it's going to make a difference. Trying to get him to therapy, going to couples therapy and all the abuse that happens there. I need you to understand, if you're at the place where it's plateaued, if you're at the place where you're not actually healing, if you're at the place where you're like, hey, this is great, but I have to get my fix every single week, that's not growth. That's another addiction. By now, this time, as I'm recording this, like, I see 2 different therapist counselors. I see one every other week, so I'm alternating between 2. They're both friends. They can communicate, like all this kind of stuff. They have different modalities. They communicate different. They respond different, all these things. I got to a place where I was no longer dependent on them for my growth and development. Instead, what I do is I take what I do throughout the week, and there's certain times where I'm like, hey, I work through and I process this, and I send it to one that I'm going to be talking to that week. And then when we sit down, we can actually process it. She can actually pull out things of like, hey, you did this. Hey, what about this? Diving into different pieces. But the difference is I'm not depending on either one of them for how I'm transforming my mindset. I'm not. If I depend on anyone else for that, like, I'm screwed. Because at the end of the day, it will then file out. Like, it will stop. I'll plateau. I'll get to a place where it's like, oh, can't do any more with this person. Like doors are closed, like whatever it might be. But instead, when it's me, and the only comparison I have is me, myself, and I working on me. How am I getting better from yesterday? How am I growing from yesterday? How am I showing up better mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationship-wise? How am I growing and developing? When that's on the table, 100% difference, because I'm not comparing to another person. I'm not identifying that I have to have this other person. I'm not going back and forth with a therapist every single week being like, hey, fix me. No, I'm saying, hey, I have the tools to actually liberate my mindset on a day-to-day basis, and I've been doing that for years now. This is why people look at my platform, they're like, whoa, you don't even seem like a narcissist. Okay, no shit. Because the amount of time, money, and investment that I've been putting into myself to transform this mindset has been unbelievable, and most people don't even start down that road. The time of me recording this, I've done over 1,600 stacks. Typically they range about an hour a piece. Of me working through and rewiring my mindset. My mental frame of how I'm coming across, of how I'm reacting, of how I'm responding, breaking it down so I can understand myself more and more and more, taking my revelations from that into counseling and saying, hey, this is what I figured out this week. Can you give me a different perspective? But I'm not reliant on them. Many therapists out there are inadequate to help you actually break free from narcissistic abuse. They might give you great mantras. They might give you great band-aids that make you feel better in the moment, but then you still get back into the fog and have to go back and visit them the following week. This is what I ran into early on with the clients that I served. Early on, I was doing one-on-ones, and I was doing like these packages of like meet with me 5 times, 7 times, 3 times, whatever. And I started seeing this happen in my own clientele. Like I started seeing a person be like, yeah, I get it. And then they come back a week later and they're like, yeah, maybe he's not a narcissist. And then we talk, they go through the facts, they start to liberate their own mindset. And they're like, yeah, I get it. And then we leave for a week and then they come back and like, So I started to notice this like in working with people, and I'm like, wait a second, this does not work. So we started developing programs. We started developing communities. We started developing systems of step by step by step that keeps you accountable on a day-to-day basis. And as you show up for you, not for me, not for anyone else. Some of the people that have invested thousands of dollars into different communities that I run, like don't always get like one-on-one time with me. But the results they get are absolutely incredible because I realized it's not the one-on-one time with me, it's the consistency with yourself. Of you showing up with you, of you learning the systems, the frameworks that help rewire your mindset, be supported by myself and other people in the community saying, hey, you can do this. This is how you can do this. Here's feedback. All these things help, but then you show up for you. And the difference is your work that you did, your accomplishments that you did is yours, not mine. This is why it's absolutely amazing to see people that win, that grow, that get free, because then I'm able to say to them, those are your results. I didn't do that. I tell people at the very beginning, I'm not here to save you, and I'm not going to do the work for you. That's very clear. Every single call, I'll tell people this. Because I need you to see when you show up for you, you transform you. Some of you just don't have the systems and tools to do it. You're not sure how. I want to provide those for you. If you're interested in that and learning any more about this, go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. Be able to hear a short presentation of how I actually help liberate your mindset, your emotions, the logical piece that gets stuck in between all these different pieces. Go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough today.